It's run along the lines of a real trial, with scripts written by Sydney barristers and based on actual cases which have gone before a court. Each school enters a team of 6.
Within those teams you have 2 barristers, 2 witnesses, a solicitor and a court assistant or a court staff person.
Points are awarded not so much on whether the defendant is found guilty or not, but on how the arguments are framed and presented and court procedure understood and followed. Today, at the Great Lakes Council Chamber at Foster, Warners Bay was judged the superior side. According to Mark Bright, the scheme offers invaluable experience to the students, especially those with aspirations in law.
My team from 2 years ago contains 2 now training lawyers at Newcastle University.
MacKillop now drops out of the competition. Warners Bay High will next compete in the semi-finals against a school yet to be determined.
Ports were all but deserted today. Off the coast, clusters of stranded ships were steadily building as carriers wait for the strike to end. Waterside workers walked off the job at midday yesterday, demanding the federal government secure the future of the Australian National Line. Industrial Relations Commission talks failed this morning, with the union refusing to back down. The Commission has now called for an urgent meeting between the maritime unions, the ACTU and the federal government. Meanwhile, the repercussions are being felt throughout the country, with at least 80 ships laying idle, carrying hundreds of millions of dollars in cargo.
It has in the past had a very bad reputation, and in the last 2 or 3 years, what with the reforms on the waterfront, that reputation was coming good. But now, bang, and it's now looking bad again.
Newcastle has 7 coal carriers off its coast and a shipment of vital petroleum coke needed for the Hunter's aluminium industry. By the end of the weekend, there will be another 10 vessels. The grain carrier Hawk Arrow has been exempted to offload vital fodder for drought-affected farmers. It's estimated every wasted day costs $30,000 a ship, the cost to the country running into the millions. The New South Wales Coal Association says the long-term damage could be even greater. It says every stranded ship is another contract not met on time, sinking Australia's credibility as an exporter. Petrol shortages are expected if the strike continues, but unions have rallied behind their maritime colleague.
Well, the maritime unions feel that they've got no alternative given the stance taken by Mr Brereton.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Having won Newcastle Cups in 1973 and 75, Caloundra trainer Frank Penfold has returned with Sea Winnie in the hope he can capture the city's other big spring prize, the $100,000 NBN Cameron Handicap. And following today's barrier draw, Penfold and jockey Bill Goodwin were beaming. Barrier 5, bringing them one step closer to realising their goal.
Well, I'm delighted with our draw. I know how bad it is when you've got a big chance and draw badly. I can feel sorry for the other fellows, but that's the luck of the draw.
That luck deserted Big Dreams and the Max Lees trained Flitter, both drawing wide alongside each other. A full look at the field reveals that several other of the better chances drew poorly, while the Paul Perry trained Navy Seal drew the rails and Gay Waterhouse's Over the Top will jump from 8. Those positions were reflected in today's opening market, with Sea Winnie at 4s with Big Dreams, while last year's winner Flitter is at 6-1.
I still think Flitter, I just got that feeling she can win because she gets back a little bit in the field and probably have to track 3 wide. But Darren Beedman's in great form, he'll ride her, and on a home track I just think she may still win.
Mike Mitchell kept the Rollers ahead for most of the first half, but 3-point bombs either side of the break by Tony Jensen and Derek Rucker gave the Falcons a 5-point advantage. In a match where the lead changed hands 15 times, new import Steve Key was impressive for the Rollers, keeping his side in touch. The Falcons established an 8-point break in the final term, only to see it eroded to 1 point with just 2 minutes remaining. But the Falcons rallied, Paul Kuiper and MVP Terry Dozier playing in his 100th league match, securing the game and a place in the playoffs. Meantime, North Burleigh's and Uncle Toby's Ironman competitor Scott Reeves has won this year's Central Coast Club to Pub ski race. Reeves completed the 27-kilometre journey from Copacabana Surf Club to Kincumber Hotel in a record 1 hour, 53 minutes and 53 seconds. Swansea Belmont's Matthew Chalmers was 8 seconds behind, while Collaroy's Luke Birmingham was third. The surfboat race was also contested with Manly victorious, McMaster's the first Central Coast crew to finish.
Given the recent spate of city buildings damaged by fire, Council is getting tough on safety regulations. Spurred on by last week's office block blaze in Sydney and 2 boarding house fires in Newcastle, it's concerned some of the city's older buildings are fire traps. The Great Northern Hotel is a target. Its owner has been issued with an order to evacuate the residential floors. The 56-year-old building provides lodging for up to 40 boarders, but Council argues if a fire broke out, lives would be at risk.
There are risks to the occupants, and there are lives being lost in similar fires. And in fact, recently in Newcastle, 2 fires where lives were saved as a result of fire safety equipment placed in those buildings, which only emphasises the reason we're taking these legal avenues at present.
Council says it's been a long battle to get the owner, who's trying to sell the building, to fix the problems, and claims it had no choice but to serve the eviction notice.
Each of these instances follows a process of negotiation, discussion, advice, and ultimately we're concerned with the safety of the occupants.
The Sydney-based owner was unavailable for comment today. Under the eviction order, residents have 30 days to leave the premises before further action is taken. Melinda Smith, NBN News. This is just 1/5 of the sound that helped judges make their decision. The band was awarded the A-grade title in Penrith at the weekend, its first major win in nearly a decade.
We were totally stunned because we've never won a Senior A before, and this was the first time we'd competed at the state, and I don't know, it's just brilliant altogether.
The Broadmeadow High Ensemble has gained quite a reputation as both a marching and concert band, and it's taken more than dedication to make it to the top.
We usually have practice 3 hours a week, but when we go to competition, we have Saturday, Sunday practices, we have morning practices, we have sectionals, so it's probably an extra 3 or 4 hours a week work.
Planning to maintain the winning streak, instruments will be kept warm for next year's national titles in Brisbane. And as a special homecoming performance, the full 50-piece concert band will open Education Week at the Broadmeadow School tonight.
It was a hurdle the Falcons had never overcome, the Gold Coast Rollers at home. Up by 2 points at half-time, the Falcons withstood a belated Rollers charge, eventually winning the match by a comfortable 9-point margin.
We'd never won a game up there until this year, and it was a game we had to have, and we did enough to win the game, so it was pleasing in that result.
Johnson played a leading role in the victory. His 26 points and Derek Rucker's triple-double were double-figure scores in points, assists and rebounds, giving Newcastle a 4-1 record since the resumption after the World Championships, the best in the league. The Falcons are in 8th position on the ladder, clear of Illawarra and the Gold Coast. A win over Sydney would elevate them to 7th.
Yeah, we've played well on the road probably the last 2 seasons now, but especially this season. And it's very important. Probably we cannot end up in the top 4, so we must play 2 games on the road to advance. So, you know, we're happy with our record and we hope to continue it.
The budget agreement was made at last night's meeting of the city's 6 precincts. Following July's increase in the special benefit levy, which was bitterly opposed by some property owners, retailers have agreed to pool more than $330,000 to jointly fund city centre promotions.
The decision made was that precincts will now be having a much greater say in the allocation of funds within the city centre area.
4 of the city's precincts supported the move. However, Derby Street and City West voted to keep half of their money aside for specific promotions in their own areas.
We're working in conjunction with the City Centre Committee, but we just felt that there need to be more emphasis placed on our area because a lot of the citywide promotions have done. People are obviously drawn towards the mall area.
The City Centre Committee is about to get a new look. Next month, newly appointed members will serve a fixed term of 3 years. The first time this has happened since the committee was formed back in 1988.
Applications are being sought now for people who are interested in joining the committee, and following the appointment by the council of a new committee, they'll elect a new executive probably during the month of October.
While Mr Evans says he'll stand for selection, he doesn't plan to serve again as chairman. Melinda Smith, NBN News. Education Week began in Newcastle today with an ecumenical and combined school service at Christchurch Cathedral. This week is designed to highlight achievements and activities from the region's schools, some of the Hunters' best-known marching ambassadors showing their world-winning style as they paraded down the mall. Onlookers in Civic Park were treated to a lunchtime concert. Students from across the area helping to show the community the fruits of a new direction in education.
Well, teaching and learning together really means that education doesn't just take place in the classroom. Parents have a very important role to play. In upper secondary education, we now have partnerships with industry, and that's important. So education, really, everybody is in it.
Harry Harding is writing his life story. Not an unusual task, but a challenging one for the former chief of Newcastle State Dockyard. 3 years ago, Harry lost the sight of his right eye. Last year, most of the vision in his other eye failed. Now at 80, he's forced to rely solely on his peripheral vision. But being a determined character, he began a special computer course with the Royal Blind Society.
They taught me again my keyboard skills and to be able, in fact, to be able to write and type.
With the help of Zoom text, which magnifies words 14 times their normal size, Harry is writing his autobiography.
I'm still only at 1941, so I've got a long way to go yet.
Olive, his wife of 56 years, describes the training course as a godsend. Harry topped his class and has gone on to continue his studies with TAFE, a pathway he recommends to others who are visually impaired.
If I had not had this other outlet, I probably would have made her life unbearable to start off with. But no, it's important to have this other thing, this other commitment.
Melinda Smith, NBN News.
The musical My Fair Lady, written by Lerner and Lowe and based on George Bernard Shaw's book Pygmalion, is the classic rags to riches story. Set in London in 1912, it tells the tale of an aristocratic language expert, Professor Henry Higgins, who bets he can turn Cockney flower seller Eliza Doolittle into a silver-tongued princess. But persistence prevails, and after hours of frustration, Henry triumphs. The whole school's involved in the production, with drama students in the cast, art students creating the sets, and music students in the band. Some of those at last night's final dress rehearsal found time for the odd game of chess in between scores. The public performances of My Fair Lady will be held at the Griffith Duncan Theatre at the University this coming Friday and Saturday night. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
For half of his 4 years, Jamie Boy struggled to live. In that short time, he suffered hundreds of small heart attacks, the result of a disease called cardiomyopathy. But last night at 9:55, Jamie lost that battle. His tiny body just refused to keep working.
I want him to be remembered as a battler and as a little boy who touched a lot of people very deeply.
When Jamie was diagnosed with the disease in 1991, his father David set about making people aware of organ donation. But he always knew the chance of Jamie receiving a new heart and new lungs was virtually nil. Of all children waiting for transplants, around 90% die. Jamie was one of the youngest. Just a few months ago, Jamie appeared on Romper Room. He wanted to be like any other child, but Jamie was special, and his parents knew he needed special care. A candle has been lit in the lounge room of the Boy family home. While it will eventually go out, David's greatest wish is that Jamie's memory will continue to shed light on the importance of organ donation.
We did a lot of work to try and highlight the plight of children needing a transplant, and I just hope that's not wasted now.
22-year-old David Penny was shot twice in the leg and in the abdomen and the shoulder yesterday morning by a police officer. He was allegedly wielding a long-bladed knife and had attempted to take a woman hostage after crashing this car in Hamilton. Police today interviewed those who witnessed the shooting.
There is an investigation taking place by a shooting team, and I really can't make any further comment in relation to the incident until the result of that investigation is available.
It could take some time for that to be known, but it's believed witnesses have corroborated the officer's account of events and that police believe early indications suggest he acted correctly. David Penny was interviewed in John Hunter Hospital late this afternoon, where he remains under police guard. His brother Tony, who works at a juvenile justice centre in Sydney, spent most of the day with him.
His injuries, they've cleaned them up. They haven't operated yet. He's still got a couple of bullets in him.
Tony spoke with police today, questioning why 4 bullets were needed to bring his brother down.
No, I can't understand. That's why I'm here now, to see what the police can tell me. So hopefully after we finish in here, we might have some answers.
While a team from the Major Crime Squad, headed by Detective Sergeant Lance Chaffee, inquires into the shooting, a separate investigation is being held into an assault and robbery at Newcastle University. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
Thanks very much.
Their game preparations are similar to those of any basketball team. A few baskets and layups to warm up. The possible exception, the pre-game lippy. The average age of this team tips 50, and many have been teammates for more than a decade. With the World Masters Games held in Australia for the first time, the temptation to participate was irresistible. The main criteria for the Games is age, 25 and over. These ladies will represent Newcastle in the over 45 division. Their name, Bin 40.
Well, Bin 40, as we thought, is the name of a matured wine, and as we're maturing with age, we thought a good drop of wine we could mature with the name.
As for training, well, this is it, A-grade comp. The policy is you can't beat the real thing.
You're only going to learn by your own mistakes as you play.
As for planned secret manoeuvres for the world's largest multi-sporting event...
No, I think most of them are pretty secretive to ourselves.
Not scared to have a go, Lorraine believes her side will be competitive up north. But while wanting to make their mark on the court, international relations rates top priority.
Meeting everybody. I think the friendship and all the companionship.
The team departs on Sunday, ready to begin playing the following day. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
Ross Muirhead is a Maitland farmer who's doing it tough, but he's the first to admit life on his property is better than others.
Oh, our life is quite easy here. We've got irrigation to which we can keep crops growing, but 90% of those people haven't got it.
This season's potato crop produced a 20-tonne surplus. With the help of the local Rotary Club, 60 bags of produce are on their way to farmers in the state's northwest.
The country people tend to think a little bit, the town people ignore them a bit, and I think this will, be a little bit towards going to say, well, we know you're having a tough time, and there's a little bit of thought towards them.
Now affecting 83% of New South Wales, this year's drought has been described as the one that could break many farmers, both financially and in spirit. But locals at Newcastle's Albion pub are planning to ease the burden. This Sunday, a huge charity day has been organised near the harbour, with all proceeds to go towards the National Farmhands Appeal.
It affects everybody, and eventually it's going to affect us. If those people are forced to get off the land or have to sell up because they can't survive, we're going to pay the price. So we think it's our duty to get in and do a little bit about it.
At Raymond Terrace, Irrawang High's brass band is practising to lift hopes and spirits. Over the next 2 weeks, the 31-member troupe will journey across 4 states on an outback concert tour, spreading their music and a message of support.
Or sort of take their mind off it and, give them a break and they can have a look at something new.
Everyone's pretty excited about it. Everyone wants to spread some joy, happiness to everyone.
Melinda Smith, NBN News.
Newcastle and its hinterland have long been seen by locals as Australia's best kept secret. Outside the region, the perception that the area is marred by smog, industrial plants and mines still persists. But that could soon change if ambitious plans to put the area on the domestic and international tourist map are realised.
More and more people are seeing the attributes of the area, and I think, yes, it won't take long before we can shake off that image and put the Hunter where it deserves, right at the forefront of the regional tourism map.
Ian McAndrew is the chair of the newly formed Hunter Tourism Board. Set up by the New South Wales Tourism Commission, the 14-member board is one of 17 in the state that will have access to $5.1 million each year to advertise, market and fund tourism projects. Currently, international tourists bypass the Hunter for Byron Bay, Surfers Paradise and Cairns. It's a cash crop the new board believes is ripe for the area to pick.
Most of the inbound people from overseas, they gateway through Sydney. We've got to make sure that we get our share of those people coming through Sydney and get them into the Hunter.
Never in the history of human conflict have so many owed so much to so few.
Similar services were held around the world to remember a torrid 33 days, which may well have shaped the history of the last half-century. Germany had conquered France and was poised to invade Britain, and sent waves of bombers across the Channel to strike cities and airfields. Battling the odds of 4-1, the Royal Air Force faced the Luftwaffe in a desperate defence. A recording of Winston Churchill's famous wartime speech was played during the ceremony in Newcastle Civic Park.
Upon this battle depends the survival of Christian civilization. If the British Empire and its Commonwealth last for 1,000 years, men will still say, this was their finest hour.
The efforts of those pilots, and as importantly, the efforts of a large number of radar controllers, plotters, and engineers of both sexes were instrumental in Hitler's decision to call off his planned invasion of England. Had those few not been successful, then the German invasion could very well have succeeded and have had massive consequences for the world order as we know it today.
At 11 o'clock, a formation of F-18s from Williamtown RAAF base swept over the city. For some, the aircraft brought recollections of the famous Spitfires and the deadly conflicts in the skies. The Royal Air Force lost more than 400 airmen and the Germans about 2,000 during the Battle of Britain. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
Fishermen found the tortured body of English immigrant Paul Manson, thumb-cuffed and weighted down with house bricks in Lake Macquarie in 1991.
He went out to have a look to see what it was, and it was a body.
Manson had been killed the night before on board a yacht chartered by his ex-girlfriend Billie Jean Kirk and her new boyfriend Andrew Malone. Malone stole his credit card and beat him until he revealed his PIN number. Once the body was discovered, Kirk and Malone took flight. A month later, they were arrested in Tasmania. Billie Jean gave police this interview.
Can you explain to me what you saw?
Paul lying down, like I said before, with blood and all that.
Yeah.
And bricks sort of tied on both his legs.
After Manson's body was thrown overboard, Kirk cleaned up the blood.
I just got my towel and started doing that, and I cleaned it up.
Andrew Malone was sentenced to 15 years jail. Billie Jean was found guilty of being an accessory after the fact, and although sentenced to just over a year in prison, today she walked free. In sentencing Billie Jean Kirk, Justice James took into account the fact she'd been subjected to 3 trials and had already served more than a year in jail.
I'm just happy that it's all over, and although I really don't think justice is done because I'm not guilty of anything.
As for why she fled with Malone,
I was scared, I was threatened, and to this day I still believe he carry out the threats that he made to me.
Joan Anderson, NBN News.
Teams from as far as Victoria and the North Coast came to contest the week-long event, but it was the local bowlers that dominated. For Valentine Foursome, Betty Brown, Ethel Crawford, Thelma Parkinson and Joyce Newell, there was time to watch their 3 closest rivals duel for second after winning 10 straight matches. The deciding round came when the 2 Warners Bay sides took to the green. It turned out to be little contest. The crew, skippered by Betty Grebbett, controlled the game. Grebbett's side never faltered, claiming an eventual 25-3 shots from 12 ends after a 2-hour match. In the lower divisions, the winners were Heaton Birmingham Gardens, Toronto Workers and Tea Gardens. Joanne Shoebridge, NBN News.
Former Wallaby captain Mark Ella was a special guest at today's grand final lunch hosted by the Waratah Club, attended by several of tomorrow's combatants. Singleton officials claim the week off has assisted the club and believe the performances of Representative halfback Steve Merrick and Maitland 5'8" Christian Taylor could determine the outcome. Ironically, Taylor and Merrick are likely to partner each other in the Newcastle side next year. Maitland wary of Merrick's talents.
Steve's a great player and you've always got to watch him, but we can't put too much emphasis on Steve because, as we said, there's 14 other good players out there that we've also got to pay attention to. So,
Singleton's 3 wins over their local rivals has earned Maitland the underdog tag for tomorrow's premiership decider, something which sits well with coach Alan Barker.
We're using it as a bit of motivation because a lot of people did think that we didn't deserve to be there, and the boys have got a point to prove. So.